The wildlife management in Montana has become extremely politicized. Everybody says it should be science-based, but in fact, science takes a deep backseat behind politics. And the state of Montana is basically doing nothing. They said, we're not going to restore wild bison.
We have the sacred cultural right to hunt, fish, and gather in all usual and accustomed places. They're telling our people when they can hunt and where they can hunt.
Our bison deserve rights too. They're vital to this ecosystem.
I'm sad with the way that our national parks and our national wildlife refuges have become under the influence of commercial interests and industrial development.
Even when I was a kid, learning about our relationship with the bison, how they gave us everything, like we should be giving our everything to them. And what I've got from quite a few people is if more of the membership knew how messed up that hunt is, they wouldn't, be participating in it.
They get to a point where they had to take whatever the government gave them.
There's been a big push by the livestock industry to get rid of brucellosis in cows. And as a result, the feds in the state of Montana want to get rid of brucellosis in bison.
So in bison, the way it would present itself would be in females. They may have late-term abortions or stillbirths of their calves. That aborted fetus or stillbirth, the placenta in and around that are loaded with the bacteria. And so if other bison come up to investigate, they can then get the disease.
We've learned to live with it, with elk transferring brucellosis to cattle, and it did not decimate the livestock industry.
I called the state veterinarian up. I said, I want to ask about brucellosis. He says, so where do you live? I said, Livingston. And he assumed I was a rancher. And he said, oh, you don't have to worry about brucellosis. At the same time, he was telling publicly the state was going to lose their whole brucellosis-free status.
Quarantine can be a way that we are able to capture bison. We're able to place them into quarantine. We're able to test them. We're able to, if you will, certify them as disease-free so that they can go to other landscapes.
I think it is harmful, unnecessary, but I understand why it was put in place. We're interrupting the natural migration pattern of bison. Basically, all that is based on the myth that bison will infect cattle with brucellosis.
If we say bison can roam north of Yankee Jim Canyon, then we don't have to worry about transporting bison anywhere. Bison are transporting themselves.
To treat bison differently than all this other wildlife is the result of a lot of misinformation, for one thing, and political calculus.
So Beattie Gulch is it's a really disgusting situation. I mean, you're right there on the north boundary of Yellowstone National Park in the Gardner Basin. And literally on the other side of that boundary line is an area called Beattie Gulch. And hunters literally line up along the park boundary waiting for family groups of buffalo to migrate. As soon as they do, they gun them down.
I'd call it a straight up massacre.
In my view, it's very disrespectful to the Native Americans. They're forced to hunt inside that little piece of Forest Service, and it's not the kind of place that you want to have a hunt.
And my passion is to share the wonders of Yellowstone with people, and that's why I have vacation rentals. I was called by these people and said, "What is going on here?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "You need to come down here now." And I did, and saw blood in the road, dead bison, right alongside the road. The people in the cabin were devastated.
Just experiencing that when you don't have that expectation, what changes your trip, that changes your day, it changes your life. It really does.
So the bison in Yellowstone are our wildest herd. If we are going to save the wild plains bison genome south of Canada, we're going to have to do it with the Yellowstone herd, and we need to pay a lot of attention to it. The retention of wildness has become an important issue. A larger herd is better, and less human handling and management and control of the animals is better.
Bison on private-owned ranches are different because they're managed more like domestic livestock.
So the result is a gradual deterioration and simplification of the wild bison genome into something that is less able to survive in a wild environment. Our management has got to change in order to eliminate the loss of animals from that herd that's occurring.
So in 2019, we tried to stop it. We did our best. The judges didn't agree with us that there was a risk that a bullet would hit someone. Unfortunately, in 2022 to 2023, a bullet did strike Jackson Wak Wak. We understand he's a teenager, and from what we can tell, it hit him in the abdomen. We hope he's well. We wish we were able to do something quicker.
The real reason that bison can't roam free on federal land is because the state and the feds want the private livestock industry to be able to graze cows for very cheap on federal land. If you have a cow and a calf pair on federal land, it costs about $1.41 per month. You take that same cow-calf pair and put them on private land, it's going to cost between $20 and $30. And so it's a huge handout, it's a subsidy, but the livestock industry can never say that they're taking handouts from the feds, so they have to make an excuse, and that excuse is essentially this idea that there's this disease called brucellosis and we got to stop it.
They're a really unique wildlife resource, and more should be done to cultivate that resource.
We sought initially a preliminary injunction and temporary restraining order, and we filed actually here in Washington, D.C. This district court denied the temporary restraining order. So then it got transferred to Billings. The slaughter went forward over the winter of 2019 to 2020. So we waited for the district judge, and she took about 4 months, and she said, nope, I'm just gonna do nothing. We realized that we weren't gonna get any results from the United States District Court. We appealed to the appellate court.
The court was extremely sympathetic. The decision was a bit disappointing. They were going to give this administration another opportunity to complete the review on the agency's timeline. Since that opinion, we've had some other factual developments, and they've requested additional time. So already we have delays.
It's April 5th, 2023, and I'm here to give an update on the status of the Yellowstone wild bison. Last year they had about 6,000 bison. The National Park Service said, well, we definitely want to remove less than 25%. Despite those numbers, the people in Beattie Gulch have killed almost 1,100 wild bison. The Park Service has culled several hundred more. They've also put several hundred in holding, and so they have removed 2,318 bison this year. Far more than the 25% target the Park Service identified. It just shows the tragedy that's really happening in Beattie Gulch.
Our most important thing we need to do is gain bison their rights and freedoms that they deserve. Is we need to educate people, especially, our tribal membership here that are for those hunts,
There are other management options available, including direct transfer of bison to tribes, transfer of bison to other federal lands that the agencies have not considered because it's either too difficult or too expensive.
Expand the habitat of a naturally occurring species into federal land.
We have large parts of the West, I believe, could be home to bison again. The real most obvious one is the Charles M. Russell Wildlife Refuge.
The Custer Gallatin National Forest land. There's a habitat there for it.
People don't come to Montana to, watch cattle get slaughtered or look at cows in the field.
This is our national animal, It's an animal that's genetically unique, and we need to treat it as a national treasure rather than as a problem.
I think so many people, and there were millions of people, agree, not just Indians.
And we have to acknowledge that we'll never be able to meet the desires of the people that have perspectives at the extreme ends. We have to find some sort of middle ground.
They're so vital to the ecosystem. They're such like a nutritional animal, and just how we're going about it isn't right.